now. Uh, what's up, everybody? We are back for another episode of Preacher's Corner. This is number 17. It's so hard to believe that we're almost at the number 20. That's crazy. And Chris, you were like one of the pioneers. You came in like later on, but
Yeah,
like
it's like
you've been
time.
around since the beginning though.
I've been watching you.
So, welcome back, everybody. Again, uh, you still don't see my regular co-host Scorpio. Chris is back for another guest host. He'll be with us again tomorrow. Um, we may have a topic about amends and forgiveness, but I might have somebody who he's thinking about coming on tomorrow. Him and I might talk tomorrow. So depending on how that conversation goes, he might be on tomorrow night. But I'm glad for this to be going again. I love Preacher's Corner. Like I said, you see Chris again. Scorpio isn't here, not to jump into a bunch of details, but just keep him up in your prayers because I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with him. Um, but I'm praying. What is it? Expecting the worst, but praying for the best, or something like that. That sounded right.
Yeah, it sounds right to me. Sounds right to me. If it's wrong, just make it up and go with it. We'll put a bumper sticker
Right.
that knows if it's.
If it's wrong, don't let me know because
I will.
it sounded
Improvise,
pretty good.
improvise.
The worst part about
Uh,
doing this live is we can't edit that out. So you're kind of on it
Facts.
now. Now you're stuck with it. So
Before I could just be like, "Oh, that say the right one," and then just edit it out.
you
Now
remember
I'm
when you
kind of
said
stuck
that?
to it. But tonight, our guest for the night is James. James, I met through another platform that I'm on, Facebook, the Recover Out Loud group that we were talking about. What was it last week with Josh? And so I asked James if he wanted to come on, talk little bit about his story, and then we'll talk about. Um, we have a new line of questioning that James is the guinea pig for, but it'll really hit that addiction, recovery, and mental health because that's ultimately what this podcast I've wanted it to be. So we'll see how these questions go tonight. Maybe we'll try them again on somebody else, and depending on how they work, they'll stick. But James, let everybody know where you're from and three interesting facts about yourself.
Well, I'm from Pekin, Illinois. Three interesting facts about me is um, kind of funny. This is named Preacher's Corner because I'm a PK, which
Okay,
stands for Preacher's Kid. For those that don't know,
not this preacher's
no,
kid.
nope, not that
I
Preacher's
was gonna
Kid.
say that this just got real serious, and you did not warn me. I don't even know what to do with that.
Uh, I love motorcycles, and so I've been around the recovery community for about 25 years, and managed to pull about 8 months sober. The reason why I'm choosing that as a interesting fact, I guess we'll figure that out as we go.
Thanks. I like it. On the fly. Um, so thank you for that. Again, welcome to Preacher's Corner. Um, you are, even though this is episode 17, I think you're like the 15th guest around there. I've thought about I might start doing this. I'm gonna go back and write down everybody's name, and I'm gonna go and buy a poster board. And every time I have a guest on, I'm gonna write their name or reach out to them and be like, "Hey, like sign a piece of paper and like take a picture of it and send it to me, and then I'll cut it out and put everybody's name as I have a guest up on this poster board." And
Oh,
so
that's cool.
as I get more guests, it'll start picking up. So
Nice.
uh, yeah, so I thought that'd be pretty cool. Um, but jumping in, um, can you share just a little bit about your personal story as far as addiction's concerned, and what led you down that path?
Yeah, absolutely, I can. But before we get into that, I want to just take a moment and talk to my higher power that he could use me to reach somebody. So
Absolutely.
okay, so I'm James, and I'm an alcoholic addict, dually addicted. So my story is not super unique, my drug of choice was whatever you got. I was definitely a garbage pail kid. So addiction started for me when I was really young. I was diagnosed with ADHD. I definitely qualify for the mental health issues as well. The doctor decided he'd put me on Ritalin at a young age. Told my parents that if they ran out of the Ritalin to just give me coffee, and it would do the same thing. So I started taking the Ritalin as prescribed, and then at some point it became where it was, one's good, two's better. If two's better, 10's great. So my addiction started at a young age with that, and then it just progressed. Really, I started smoking weed probably 7th or 8th grade, and that's where it started. I tried. So I kind of got tricked into cocaine. I had a guy I was selling a whole bunch at the time, and when I had somebody else roll a blunt for me, and he threw some in there without me knowing, I lit it up, and it was love at first hit. That was where I totally just lost it, and everything took off. That first hit was all it took for me. Then, of course, there was a ton of it around there. I just got out of the military.
What brand?
There was a bunch around. I lost myself in the cocaine world for a while. I spent a lot of money that I had saved up over the years of being in the military. My life savings gone. So I started forging my parents' checks, started stealing basically anything that wasn't nailed down. I became that person that I didn't want to be. And at that time in my life, I see no way out. I remember going to my bank and trying to withdraw some money. And they're like, "Hey, hang on just a second. We'll be right back." And they went back, and next thing I knew, there were some cops walking in, and they had some jewelry for me. That was the first time I got arrested. Man, I'll never forget it. I knew then. I didn't know anything about addiction, but I knew that is not the life that I wanted. But yet, through the addiction of the cocaine and pretty much whatever else you had, trying to cover up those feelings of not feeling wanted, because I was adopted too. So about the year 1999, 2000, I got introduced to Narcotics Anonymous while sitting in Knox County Jail, and I came to the meeting because I wanted to get out of the cell block. Right, like I didn't know anything about recovery. I didn't know at that time that was going to open a doorway for me that would lead to a life of, how they told me that now that I've been introduced to Narcotics Anonymous and I started going for a while. At that time, I think before I relapsed, that time I think I had something like a year and a half clean, and when they told me that they had screwed up my using, they told the absolute 100% truth. So we'll kind of speed it up here, and here we are, 25 years later, and I've done cocaine, I've done a little heroin, I've done a little bit of the meth, the ice. The ice really got me. It had me doing things that I never dreamed was possible. I was one of those. Well, cocaine was my main DOC, but I tried meth, the old school crank, and man, I would be up for weeks at a time, sometimes a month and a half. I think almost 2 months was the longest I ever stayed awake, and it had me seeing things, hearing things. That people that I've been friends with for forever were out to get me. My family was out to get me. People, the shadow people were out to get me. It just, life got real bad. And, again, part of my disease was also, if it wasn't nailed down and I needed it worse than you did, whether that was true or not. In my mind, that was the absolute fact of the matter, and I was taking it. So, throw alcohol in there too. So alcohol for me, by the grace of God, I haven't really had a drink in probably 15 or 20 years. It's been quite a while for alcohol, but I do know today that if I were to pick up a drink, I may not do it that first time, but it's just a matter of time before I would pick up, whatever I felt like or I could get my hands on. This last time, so I in and out of recovery, in and out of rehabs. I think I got 4 rehabs. I've been in prison 5 times with a total of 13 and a half years. Countless jail time. Right now, I'm currently on drug court in Tazewell County in Illinois. So this last time, I was I was attacked by 2 pits and their owner for 25 minutes. I was already in kind of a relapse that, I was kind of dabbling. I'd use a little bit and then I'd get sober for a few days and then I'd use a little, I was playing the game, but like they say, a head full of AA or NA and a belly full of booze or lung full of dope, it does not mix. And my life just spiraled down after I got I got attacked by the 2 pits and their owner. Went to the hospital. They shot me full of Oxycontin, fentanyl, and left and sent me home with Vicodin. Man, I tell you what, I couldn't light a cigarette to save my life, but I sure found somebody to light the lighter for me to smoke my crack, to light, to be able to smoke the ice. So I was one of those, I'll never do ice, I'll never do heroin, and I'll never shoot up. But I found out that was just yet, through that relapse, I've done heroin. Not my thing. I didn't like it. And it was truly an accident how that happened. But the fact is that I did it, and I'm so grateful that it wasn't my thing, because, man, I've seen people trying to get off that, and my thing's uppers, the stimulants. So the ice, I was on my way to Texas with a friend, and we got to Arkansas. And apparently, me being up for 5 or 6 days and still doing the ice, I apparently walk through Walmart and think it's okay to change the price tags wherever I see fit. They didn't like that. So,
That smiley face they have definitely turned
Yeah.
upside down.
yeah. Oh yes. So I went to walk out, and the store security tried to stop me, and of course, you can keep the shit. I'm gone. And I walked out of the doors, and I made it about halfway down an aisle in the parking lot before the cops were behind me. By God's grace, so I got charged with paraphernalia, commercial burglary. What was it? Commercial burglary, paraphernalia, possession. And then when I got to the jail, they searched me again, found more dope in my pocket, and tried hitting me with introduction of a controlled substance into a penal institution. So they dropped that because of where they found it at. I was facing 0 to 20 years on the lowest felony for being a habitual offender. Never been in trouble in Arkansas in my life. Didn't know that they could pull your record from another state and use that. However, they did, and I was looking at 0 to 20 years, and I'm like, man, why? Everything was going through my head, and even then, I knew that I needed something to change. But the jail I was in, they didn't have any type of treatment program, any type of substance abuse, or if they did, very select few people got to go to it. So I'm really big on the H&I, the hospitals and institutions. I'm trying to become more involved with that, but because of my background, makes it a little difficult. But it's just those hurdles that I got to jump over, and in God's time, He'll make that possible. But I was in Arkansas for about 4 months, and I got out, and my buddy I took that trip with came down and picked me up because apparently he was going that way anyway. So we finished that trip to Texas, stayed down in Texas for 3 days, and shot back and got back. He gave me whatever, and I ended up, before I got arrested this last time, I ended up shooting up over 2 ounces of ice in less than a week. That's a lot. I didn't know who I was, where I was. I was with this guy that at the time he had found this house. So one of my things that I do when I'm high is I get into abandoned houses and go through stuff. And so he told me this house was abandoned, and lo and behold, it wasn't. But so this, and I'm so grateful today that that could have turned out bad for us, for them. Thank God nobody was there with a loaded gun or anything worse happened. So he gets arrested that night. I got arrested the next day because I ran, and my mindset at that time was, man, I can't believe he ratted on me, right? But it's all his fault. It was the house that he told me was abandoned. He should have checked it out more. The story. You blame everybody and everything for your problems except where truly the blame lies.
I think
absolutely
on that one, James, I think it's funny as you hear a lot of people use that, like the blame. I did it too, but and we actually believe. Like, it's not, I think a lot of people that haven't had an addiction history think that that's just part of the hustle. It's actually not. We actually believe it's somebody else's fault. It's not our fault that we one chose to go break into somebody's house.
Yes,
It's somebody
absolutely.
else's fault for telling us.
I was bringing it, like, being preacher's corner, bringing it to like a biblical like thing. Like, if you look at the story of Adam and Eve, like I was just looking at that this morning, and like God had specifically told Adam, do not eat from any, like, you can eat from any of these trees, but this one right here, do not eat from. He told Adam. And if you look, he didn't tell Eve, he told Adam. So Adam should have like disseminated the information. And so it says that while Eve was eating the tree, Adam was right there, like while she was eating it. And then she went and handed it to him. And so now they both did this thing they weren't supposed to. And God, it says, is walking, they hear the voice of God walking through the garden. And it says, where are you? And then when God says, like, did you do this? He's like, yo, it was the woman. And so like that just makes me think, like, we are constantly, when we are placed in this like predicament that we put ourselves in willingly, we're like, yo, it wasn't me. Like, I know I did it, but I didn't do it. Like,
Right.
if it wasn't for this person, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true because through the 20 plus years or, even further back than that, even when I was a kid, I'd do something wrong. I'd be like, hey, my brother told me to do it. Or, well, they didn't care. And that got me in trouble every time.
Absolutely.
But
I just think it's bizarre. Like, there are two different ways that we do that too. Like, one is out of fear because we're trying to avoid consequence. But sometimes I think that we're just doing it because we're mad that somebody else did that. So we're so mad at them, we want the attention pointed to them and their role that was so offensive to us.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, we'll talk about amends being made, but part of that is part of the things you have to address with your inventory is also resentments that you have towards other people.
Yes.
When you're making amends, there's a whole other piece of that. So you also have been either harmed or perceived to be harmed. You're going to have those things that got to be dealt with as well. And there's a boatload of those things that I forgot the first time I went through the 12 steps.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as far as the 12 steps go, I'm actually getting ready to start my 4th step for the second or third time now that I've done them. Granted, this time it's the first time around for this trip through recovery. But you're absolutely right. It's one of those things. It's like, man, it's not my fault. It's really not my fault, and I can still find myself doing that today. It's not my fault. But then I got to stop and I look and I say, when I truly look at where the fault lies, the action of breaking into the house may not have been my fault, even though I was there and I was taking part of it. So it definitely was. But, my fault also lies in, if I wasn't high, I probably wouldn't be doing this. If I wasn't with this guy, I probably wouldn't have been doing this,
I think that's where we shortchange ourselves when you're talking about doing your step work and you're on step 4. So at that point in time, it's all preparation with you and who your higher power is to get ready. By step 4, you're taking an inventory and you're going to go talk to somebody else about what's going on there. You're not even anywhere near making amends with anybody yet, or even dealing with that stuff right now.
No.
You're trying to figure out what your shortcomings are so that one more time. So just as you did the first 3 steps, the first step you said, man, my life's a mess. I can't take it anymore. Second step, you said there's a God out there that might take it, or a higher power. And then the third one says, take it, God. After that, you start working on your shortcomings. And then again, you give it to him in 6. And then you start working through the outer world that you have. But those first part of the steps is just, man, working with, I don't know about you, but for me, I was the biggest liar to me that anybody could ever lie to me. I mean, I was telling lies to myself all the time. And until I got that story straight, how could I ever understand what I did to other people?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the biggest lie I told myself was, I'm not that bad. You know what? That's not that big of a deal. You know that $50 you stole from your mom. That's not that's not the end of the world. They can replace that.
You know people that did a lot worse. You're not as drunk as the guy at the end of the bar.
Well, and I
Right.
think those two things, if we do that if we I'm gonna say if we decrease the or minimize what it is that we do, and we minimize our hand in it, like it makes it less. Like if you're walking around, like okay, I mean, yeah, I'm smoking crack, but at least I'm not like this guy looking for white pieces on the ground. Like, and I
Right.
used to say that. Like, I'm like, yo, I know I'm bad, but like, I'm not crawling on the floor. And
Yeah.
so I think we do that because when we do that, it's like okay, we still we're lying to ourselves in the sense of like I still have somewhat of a control over this. Like and so like I may be a little out of control, but at least I still have a little bit of control. So like
Yeah,
it hasn't fully taken me yet. No,
agreed.
Yeah.
bro, you're like full blown. Like just because you aren't crawling on the ground, you still
Oh, he frees up again.
I think, oh, there he is.
Oh, there
there
he
we
is.
go.
So
I think even still, like so you can minimize, and then I think by saying that it's not my fault, you are if it's not your fault, now you can play the victim.
Yep.
If it's not your fault, now you can play victim. Like I've been watching My 600 Pound Life, and I have I have not I don't think I've watched this since my recovery, but it was on today, and I was like, why not? And so I start watching it, and I'm like, and I'm seeing the parallels, and I'm like, it's an addiction, like, and
Yeah.
so I've been looking at this and seeing just like when people are in this spot and you're deep in your addiction, and even with like My 600 Pound Life, it's like, well, I mean, I'm eating it because they cooked it for me. It's not like at any time you could be like, yo, I don't want to eat all this food,
Yep.
but and so like at any time there's opportunities that we have to admit like okay, yes, I put myself into this position, and then when you realize I put myself into this position, now there's something I can do about it. But as long as we keep sitting and anybody keeps sitting and saying it's not my fault, then you can continue saying that you're the victim, and you can continue living in whatever it is that you're living in.
Well, I think looking at this from a biblical standpoint, you know, we've been throughout history just been taught that that victim role is okay.
Mhm.
We'll take the Israelites when they were slaves in Egypt, you know, and they just stayed there and they didn't want to follow Moses out to the promised land, you know.
Why'd you bring us out here to die?
Yeah,
We
exactly.
could have
You
stayed. We
know,
could have stayed slaves.
but so take that a little further. You know, when they crossed the Red Sea and they started into that promised land and they seen that promised land, their faith got a little stronger and they stopped playing the victim role. Um, they man, and then they sent the 10 spies and you
The
had
spies done messed it up
yeah, exactly. And it's like man, and now you're not you can see it, but you can't have it.
because
You know
you listened to the wrong people.
exactly,
Because
exactly.
what I love about that is there was 10 of them that were saying, "Yo, these these giants, bro. Like
Right.
if we go over there, we're done." But then you had the two. You had Joshua and you had
Caleb.
and
Caleb.
Caleb, and they
Yep.
were like, "Yo, yes, they're giants, but I mean, God just parted the Red Sea. Like
Right.
what?" And
Right.
so they had that choice, and just like Joshua says, I think one of the greatest things Joshua says, it's right there at the end of Joshua, like choose this day who you're going to serve, and
Yep.
so we all have this choice, and the Israelites were met with that choice, like. Are you going to listen to the wrong people, or are you going to listen to the right people? And I
Right.
think we have that choice each and every day. Like, who are we going to listen to? Are we going to listen to that voice that says feed the addiction, or are we going to listen to the voice that says feed the recovery?
Well, and then take that a little step further. God showed them through parting the Red Sea, I can take care of this.
Absolutely.
All you got to do is trust that I'm going to take care of it and sit back and watch the show.
He said,
And
nah, it's good, bro.
yeah. And same thing. It's the same thing with recovery. It really is. We made a mess of our lives, and we became that slave to addiction and alcoholism. And God showed me time and time again, looking back at it. Hey, you sit back and enjoy the show. I'll take care of the addiction. I'll take that from you. The forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous states, we few men and women equaling about 100 have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. I can 100% tell you for a fact today, I have recovered from that hopeless state of mind and body. I'm not recovered in the sense that if I pick up, that won't come back, because it definitely will. But I don't have to live in that hopeless state. The hopeless state for me is I lose the power of choice. When I pick up, it is no longer a choice. It's an absolute necessity for me. Today, like you've heard me share, I don't know how many times, preacher, I am one choice away from a different life. And I am thoroughly convinced that in my innermost being that I'm alcoholic. I am thoroughly convinced in my innermost being that I'm an addict, and that I can't have just screw one. I can't even have a taste.
So I have a question for you on this. You sound like you've got a lot of, you guys are talking Bible stories and things like that, and you got a lot of intellectual information relative to the Bible itself. And you've got this 15 to 20 years away from alcohol. You said you're 8 months away from everything else currently. What changed for you? It sounds, you started this whole thing with praying. For you, I happen to be a believer. I'm not a religious person, but I believe in a very personal relationship with a God that I know for sure was interested in me for whatever reason. And that changed my life. And I'm just curious about, like, for you, after all this stuff with addiction, knowing it's a disease and knowing the struggles that come along with it, where does that higher power for you make a difference? Because you guys have spent a lot of time talking about very detailed stories about the Bible, but the story and the actual relationship can be two different things. So what changed for you?
So what's changed for me is I've found a God I can do business with. Like anything, just the fact that I'm alive and that I'm breathing after shooting that much dope up in that amount of time. I can tell you, I remember sitting in that, or going into that jail cell during a count, and the door closing behind me, and it sounded a million times louder than what it actually was. And I caught a glimpse in the mirror of myself, and I just broke. God brought me to my knees, literally, and I was just bawling. And I just started praying, and that gift of desperation, that God, that gift of desperation hit, and I just became so desperate for my life to change that I had no way but to, I guess I could have chose after that emotional roller coaster right there kind of subsided. But I knew right then that if I wanted my life to change, I had to start taking some action. And, I started diving into the Bible, into Bible study, into AA, and finding out who my God is, who my higher power is. I have to get that personal relationship. And it's evolved over time from that gift of desperation to the group of drunks to the God of my understanding that it is today, that I do believe in the God of the Bible, that Jesus Christ is is the one who came and died for my sins, for sure. That I think the biggest thing for me to realize all that is that heaviness of guilt, that heaviness of shame has been lifted. Not that I don't definitely owe people some apologies and some and taking care of the financial end of it, the living amends, and those things. I actually had the privilege today of talking to one of my exes that I'll tell you what, I owe that woman everything. She went through hell with me, and when it was the hardest for her, she kicked me out and sent me packing. And I'll forever be grateful because it really that's what started this road that I'm on now. Is that and it was a 2-year relapse, but it really even when I was on the streets and I was going through this, she would take my calls, although she wasn't always the nicest person, but she always was 100% genuine, 100%, hey, I know you're screwing up, but I still care about you. I think that's what I really needed in my life at that time.
I think the hard part is when we understand that at least for like the spiritual context of it, the reason we need a higher power is people are always going to fail us.
Absolutely.
I mean, humans can only go so far as to support us. I mean, I have a story of an ex that, we had a similar crossroads, and I think that where it became alive for me relative to the need for a higher power and that strength that's found there. I mean, I grew up around Christian stuff, churches and all this stuff my whole life. And I didn't really know anything alive about a Bible. In jail, I read Psalm 46 because I didn't know what else to read. I knew David and I knew he liked women and he liked to kill people and all sorts of stuff. So I thought and he liked to write music. So I figured it'd be interesting to read what he had to say. And Psalm 46, he said that God's your refuge and strength. And that made sense for me because at that point in time, I really just didn't feel like I had that. So I think when we start understanding less about what he can do for us and more about what he is and that he was interested in us, that makes a difference. For your journey, I am curious, so what, it sounds to me like you're having some real positive moves forward. Like it sounds like you've got some good new mindset. What's different for you this time?
I've asked myself that a million times. Hang on just a second here.
You must have finished so you're on the coffee?
No, just water. I want to sleep tonight. So I think what's really changed for me this time around is I truly just had enough pain, both myself and causing it. As I'm truly diving into these steps, and I'm working these steps with a sponsor, and I think that a big part of that for me is just the peace that's come over my life.
So you kind of got that to that I just can't take it anymore moment, that the result is not working out real well. You finally get that. I mean, it is baffling why it takes us so long, but when you get there, it sounds like you're on a really good path forward here. Got good accountabilities. That's important.
Oh, yeah. And I think part of that too is, life got so bad for me that I stuck a 45 in my mouth and pulled the trigger, and it went click, and I pulled it out, and I was at the edge of the Illinois River, and I shot it, and it went off, and it freaked me out because, for several reasons. One, I just had the thing in my mouth and trying to make a blow up at the back of my head, but the fact that it went off in my hand just freaked me out. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful that did not go off.
Absolutely.
And that's just one instance of me, but through all the stuff that I've been through with, being attacked by the 2 pits, being jumped, the countless times I put myself in situations that I definitely could have died, car accidents, hanging out with the wrong people, being shot at, being hit. As you see, I'm missing my tooth. I got smacked in the face with a pistol. right before that happened, the guy put the gun in my ribs and pulled the trigger. And again, the gun didn't go off.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, God's hand has definitely been on my life through all of this. And I've just had to accept some grace, because that's hard for me, right? Like, how can I accept grace when I've done so much garbage in my life that
Absolutely.
I don't deserve it? But that's exactly what grace is.
That's what grace is.
God's undeserved favor, And I think the biggest lesson that I've had to, I guess, learn is I've got to extend myself some grace too, and that's hard. That's really hard for me. Life gets good. I start getting things back. Like the motorcycle, a little money in my pocket. I got friends now, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around. My disease tells me, why do you deserve this? The devil, Satan, the other half, whatever you want to call it. You don't deserve good things in your life. And now that I've actually gotten really deep into my recovery, more than just going to meetings and just kind of half-ass working the steps, I'm asking myself, well, why don't I deserve it? Just because I made some mistakes and made bad choices doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me a human,
Well, the other part of that too is if your higher power is God, based on that train of thought, and I realize not everybody sees God as their higher power, and I accept that. But I'm saying for you that claims that, he grabbed you for his purpose. So your value and your worth is all. He's already seen what he wants to do with you. So when you're going through those situations, when you're starting to feel like a piece of crap, and Lord knows I do, I understood the 12 steps better through a relapse, with the shame and guilt of how could I have done this again, and then going back through it, that it really became more alive to me. Actually having that be part of my journey was a relapse. And I think that one of the things my sponsors talked to me about, and others in that give me spiritual advice, is that this whole thing is not about what I do or don't do. If I actually believe in that God has chosen me. I didn't really choose him, so I can't really do much to get it, and I can't do much to lose it. It's just a matter of continually moving forward. As you are in step 4, you're sorting it out in your head right now, and you're getting yourself to a place you can understand the exact nature of your wrongs, not every wrong you've ever done.
Right.
And getting that all sorted out, so then you can go and be good to the community around you, which then has you going right back to another inventory that says, okay, now I'm going to give back. That whole process is built, all started with the fact that you're moving along a spiritual line, not perfection. And I'm not a negative commercial. I just really believe it because of my own experience. And it sounds to me like that's where you are. So when I hear somebody go through such a dark season that you're willing to take your own life, I want you to understand that if and when that feeling ever comes back again, that you're chosen.
Yep.
You didn't live because of anything you did or didn't do. You were selected, and there's your value.
Yes. So my life verse is 2 Timothy 1:7, and it says, "For God has not given me a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind." And I've realized that that sound mind is sober. I think one version says sober mindedness. I've got to have a sober mind. Otherwise, that power and love, it's gone, and that spirit of fear is back. I can't live. That fear has been lifted from my life today. I can go anywhere as long as I'm in fit spiritual condition. Meaning, there's times that I like to play pool. And I'll go out, and I still have friends that drink. If you're new in recovery, I definitely don't suggest this. But when I go to the bar to play pool with my friends or out in pool league or whatnot, I definitely will not go in there if I am not centered where I need to be. And when I am, I go in there with somebody else that is in recovery or knows me well enough to know, hey, you're getting a little squirrely. You ready to go? And I've got to I'm just to that point in my recovery that I'm comfortable being to that point, but not. I'm smart enough to know when it's okay for me to do that.
Absolutely. So
You know,
what would you say? So 'cause when you talk about that, it makes me think of the fact that we have there's different challenges that come with when we are in active addiction, and then there's challenges that come when we're even in recovery. And
yeah,
one of those challenges are like how do we navigate um, doing different things that normal people that haven't been in addiction are able to do. And so, um, like you're saying, we need to be suited up basically with that armor of God. We need to make sure that our relationship with God is right. And so, what we all know what it's like to face the challenges of addiction without God on our side, without that spiritual sober mindedness. Um, what would you say has been probably the biggest challenge that you've had uh, in recovery that you've noticed being leaning into God and really having this sober mindedness, this I call it clarity of mind, like having this clarity and being able to really lean into Him. What's been the biggest challenge that you faced, and how has that had an impact on that challenge?
the biggest challenge I've had up to this point. So it's a toss up between two. As you know, preacher, I'm living with an active alcoholic. Um, not that I'm tempted to drink, but my disease rears its head in different ways. That anger, that resentment, that those two right there are big ones for me. One of my old sponsors would always say, anger is one letter away from danger for me. I Every time that I've been to prison has always been alcohol or drug related. Um, you know, the anger that I can get, where he's drunk off his ass, and I'm just that mad that I haven't acted on that anger today. But that's truly the program working in my life. That's truly God working in my life. Um, but I think the biggest challenge I had was when I got out of jail. I was probably less than a week out of jail, and I was living in a homeless shelter. And I woke up and I rolled over, and about 20 feet from me, there was a guy shooting up.
Hmm.
I mean, that was an instant. Oh my God, what am I going to do? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But the big book says, I have that we have no mental defense against the first drink. I have no mental defense against the first drug. Um, and probably no human aid will be able to help me. That help must come. Sorry, that help must come from a higher power. And
Absolutely.
I truly believe, looking back at it, that was God's way of telling me, look, if you want to stay stuck in this type of situation, this is the stuff that you'll be doing. It'd either be homeless shelters, it'd be jail, prison, whatever the case may be. And I truly believe that it was it was to the point of being homeless with the clothes on my back, coming out of jail, not knowing where I was going to go, what I was going to do. That that's the point that I needed to be at, because every time that I've been to prison, every time I've been to jail, I always had my mom's house to fall back on. And this time I did not. I didn't. My family didn't want to take me in. Um, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't have wanted to
Hmm.
take me in. So
So so what would you say? Because what you just explained is something that a lot of people that are in recovery um, deal with. Unfortunately, is waking up and seeing somebody who might be using, or living with someone who might be in active addiction, or having these interactions with that. So, what would you say besides leaning into your higher power? Because that's easy to say, like just lean into your higher power as an answer to everything. I used to, when I was a student pastor, I told my students, the joke was, it's not a joke, it's the truth, but I told them, like, if I ask you a question and you can't think of an answer Jesus and you're guaranteed to be correct. And so,
Right.
so like like it's easy to be like, oh yeah, like for someone who's facing like living with and someone in active addiction, or if you're next to someone who's using and you might have a trigger or this moment of weakness, like turn to your higher power. It's easy to say that. What's something that we can practically do and that you've noticed just from your journey through recovery? What's something that you can do or someone can do when they're faced with one of those moments that you were talking about?
Oh man. So there's a couple things that I did, but I think the two things that helped me the most were meetings and picking up that £1,000,000 phone. I picked up my phone and I called my sponsor. And if he didn't answer, I just like, so if you were to look at my contacts, anybody from the program, I put AA in front of. So it's AA Bill, AA John, AA whoever. And if she went down, like, there's times that I literally go down that list and call until somebody answers. And that has been the number one key. And the program teaches me that. It tells me, that I need to lean on the group. When I can't do it, we can. My sponsor told me a long time ago, my old sponsor, who passed away, he actually told me a long time ago. So the AA symbol is the triangle inside the circle. If I get inside that, in the center of that triangle, when things start to go crazy for me, if I lean one way or the other, I'm not going to fall out of the circle because I'm going to find somebody in that triangle that's going to be able to help me. But if I'm on that edge and I'm not connected, then chances are I'm going to fall out and I'm going to relapse.
Absolutely.
I think another,
you, Chris. I know
What's
you
that?
had something, Chris. I saw it on your face.
No, I was thinking through it. I mean, the accountability is so important. It's hard not to, for me, it's hard not to just really dwell on the spiritual piece of this, because if you look at when you're doing this 12-step work, I mean, regardless of whether you're around people that are using or not using, it really isn't about them. It's really about where is your standing with your higher power and the work that you're doing. As imperfect as your work may be, you were never expected to be perfect through it. I find for me that even in a day, anger, you talk about anger is a huge problem for me. I use anger to address fear. I use anger to address my controlling behavior. I use anger to deal with somebody, offending me in any way, shape, or form. I mean, it's like cheese on any food for me. It always feels better with anger. It's like I can't get away from it. And so for me, I have to really be grounded every single day, and progress is really where my win comes from. I don't have to be perfect today. So as soon as I start leaning on the inventory of other people around me, you look at the world we're living in right now, and everybody hanging on every headline that's out there, everybody getting emotional for whatever side you're on or not on. That is not our business. As people in recovery, our job is to focus on the work that we have to do. And I think a lot of people, I've noticed, even in the 12-step work, they get to step 4 or 5 and then just don't actually do the work of moving beyond that. It's kind of like this. If you write down a prayer list every day, like we talk about in recovery, doing gratitude lists, write down things of gratitude. But if you write down a prayer list every single day and all you do is write that prayer list down, you just took notes. Until you actually pray for those people, you haven't really done what you were intending to do, and you don't expect a lot to happen with it. It's the same thing with the 12-step work. I mean, it's one thing to know the steps, but if you don't actually do the work that's required of them, you just read a book.
Absolutely.
And that helps you with the other stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I found that I think that's probably the biggest key too, through this trip through is that taking action and getting connected. You know, I've got to take some action. I can tell you that everything, the peace, the serenity, even the material stuff in my life is a direct result of me helping somebody else. And that's not my norm. You know, my norm is to say, screw you, figure it out yourself, you know, but I've had to go out of my way and out of that comfort zone, you know, comfortably feeling uncomfortable, to help somebody else, even if that's just lending an ear or, you know, praying for them. You know, that's what I've had to do. And that's what I continue to do to this day. And, you know, I live a life beyond my wildest dreams, and I know I'm just scratching the surface.
So what would you say? Because in order for someone to know that you have to pray for them, in order for someone to know that, hey, this person needs help, someone needs to say something. But I think a lot of times when we get into that spot in our addiction, it's embarrassing at times. And you don't want to go to certain people and be like, hey, this is what's going on in my life. Like what kind of advice do you have for someone who may be at that point in their addiction or even in their recovery, where they're having these cravings, they're having these thoughts like, but they're like, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to do this by myself. What kind of advice would you give to those people that are really struggling in silence and not saying anything to anybody?
So I've done this a lot, and you know, there's times I still catch myself where I can get into that mode of, man, I'll figure this out, right? I think the biggest thing for me, and it's that swallowing of that pride, you know, that ego. I've got to, or it's gonna kill me. You know, man, I've got to reach out to somebody. And I think, you know, for me, it's important that I get connected in my local AANA, my local 12-step group. And I've become, you know, I've gotten involved. You know, that's the key for me. Like, I'll go and, I got to plug my phone in. These people, I had to get somebody that knows me, that can spot that out sometimes even before I know it myself. And they say, you know, hey, everything okay? And I've had to swallow that pride and be like, yeah, hey, you know, this is what's going on. So I've got my sponsor who I love the man to death, but he's just like me. And sometimes I can take life too serious, you know, and I had to go to the hospital and, you know, so I shared with him why I had to go to the hospital and, you know, to lighten the mood because it could have been something serious. He was, you know, he sent me some memes and stuff that I was like, you know what, that's kind of funny, you know. I think that's been the key for me is not taking life too damn serious and living by Rule 62. You know, it's one of those things that I just have to, one, not take myself too serious. I can't take life too serious, but at the same time, when I need to reach out, I've got to swallow that pride and say, man, this is what's going on. I need some help. I can't do this by myself. And, you know, if you're truly involved with your local 12-step group, it's going to be a lot easier. Because that's what they teach me to do as I'm working these steps is to reach out for help, to work with another alcoholic, to work with another addict, to get through these tough times.
All the while recognizing that you still have work to do in you. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for me that I've made mistakes in the past. And I think a lot of people do as well is they start doing the work, they start getting that pink cloud and all of a sudden they want to be like Captain Recovery and go out and, you know, save the world. And, you know, I did that, you know, I really pushed the issue with some of the work I do now well before I was done with my step work and that I couldn't do that. I mean, really 12 steps says, I then carry on the work. I mean, obviously we stay in our community and we do our service work and things along those lines, but there's so much work that we have to do in ourselves before we can actually be a help to other people. And if you don't take that seriously through those 12 steps, you're really not preparing yourself for what you're going to face. And there's some wounded people, and we were once very wounded. And so for us to be appropriately serving them, we have to make sure we shore up our own ability to do that. And that's why I believe in the context of all the step work is really important for this. And I'm really happy that you're moving along those lines.
And that's as you're, because it's not easy to do this journey of recovery.
No.
And there's ups and there's downs, and one day is going to be easier to do this step. One day it's going to be harder, especially when you come to that point of having to rebuild these relationships with family and friends and people that you've hurt, and then you might have those times where you're living with someone who's in active addiction. And so there's all these different things that come at us. And we were just talking about it the other day in Recover Out Loud. Like I don't remember if it was one of the coffee chats or if it was one of the night talks, but we were talking about just that time when Peter's on the water. And I think anybody who knows the Bible knows, as Peter's walking on the water and he sees Jesus, like he starts looking and these storms start hitting him, and he sees the storms going and he starts to sink. And so what are some ways that you are able to stay really motivated when these storms hit along the path? Like, how are you able to keep going and keep pushing forward without falling back? Because it's not easy. And so what's really that why, the reason why you're able to recover, how you're able to recover?
So I guess the best way to answer that question is to share some of these storms that I've been through. You know, I've had a couple friends brutally murdered in recovery. You know, I've lost friends that OD'd, and I've lost friends that died sober. You know, and I think the thing that keeps me going is realizing where I've been. You know, they say if you don't remember your last drunk or your last use, you're probably going to repeat it. And hang on just a second. I got to remember that last drunk and that last use vividly. I remember that, and because of that, it helps me keep going. But more importantly for me is I remember the pain and the chaos and the heartache that I've caused my family, that I've caused my friends, that embarrassment. You know, I'll never forget sitting, and I don't remember much else about that arrest, but when I was in that police station, calling my kid less than a week later saying, James, hey, I've been arrested again. Hearing that hurt and that pain in his voice, and you know, that keeps me going. That I don't ever want to cause that, not just in my life, but in his life again, or anybody, you know, anybody that cares about me. And also, I think about that last residential burglary I got charged with. You know, my mind goes, man, what was that lady, that fear that was in her life because of my actions? You know, I don't want to cause that in anybody's life ever again.
So those are great. And I think that big one is that relationship with your son. and then other people have, like, what was your son could be to someone else a conversation with their mother and having to
Right.
tell their mother something, or someone's dad finding something out. And so really, when we're in our addiction, we, without knowing, well, we know what we're doing, but without knowing the effect that we're having on other people. Because a lot of times we think, like, it's my life, I'm destroying my life, it's not touching anybody else. But really, we're causing all these ripples to come out from our decisions, and it's affecting everybody that loves us, everybody that's connected to us in one way or form. And so, um, as you've moved from this place of active addiction to now being in recovery, how would you say recovery has really reshaped that relationship, one with, like, your son, and then with other people? How has recovery reshaped those important relationships in your life, and then just like the trajectory, the way your life is going?
It's
Say
I'm
that
messing with
5
big
times
words
fast.
anymore.
easy for him to say.
So how is recovery reshaped those relationships and the way your life is going? See, that flowed a lot better.
I had more fun with the first time.
Right, I did too. So, the relationship with my son, um, through his life, I've been in and out of prison, right? And his mom took him to Albuquerque, New Mexico. For 5 years, I didn't see or hear about him. Of course, she's filling his head full of all this stuff. Some of it's probably true, some of it's definitely not. And through recovery, so I was sober when he called me up. It was October of 2018, and my business was just starting to take off, and I was starting to do good, and I had the money to be able to. Okay, when he called me up and said, "Dad, I haven't seen Mom in 3 weeks. I need you to come get me." On parole. No clue how I was going to get there. Financially, we were fine, me and my ex-wife. But we had 3 dogs, 4 cats, a house, a business. We had responsibilities that needed to be taken care of before I could just hit the road. And my ex-wife, God bless her, she helped me out tremendously in this. But we got all 3 dogs taken care of, all 4 cats, the house taken care of. All my customers called and said, "Hey, listen, I've got to make an emergency trip." And we shot to Albuquerque, New Mexico, picked him up. When he came home, he seen that I was doing what I needed to do. He seen that I was sober. He seen that, Dad wasn't struggling like I was. But then he seen me fall off too, and that hurt and disappointment. But today, because of the actions I'm taking, and it's more than just it's when the rubber meets the road. What does Dad do? Well, track record is when the rubber meets the road and the road gets a little rough, Dad hides and Dad gets loaded. Well, today, he's seen me go through, like my friend just passing away earlier this week, due to cancer. He's seen that I didn't go get loaded. I was able to be there for him and his family through his last days. He's seen that, he's seen me come from not being at the homeless shelter and not giving into that temptation. That shaped our relationship to, he's one of my best, he's probably my best friend. Like, I talk to him every day, there's not a day that goes by that we don't talk. I'm just now getting financially stable to the point where I could take the trip to go see him. Try to go once a week to see him, or he comes to see me. He calls me to ask me for advice. No way that would happen in active addiction. You
Right.
know, as far as other people go, like with my ex, I was able to call and talk to her because, again, during active addiction, I take everything that's not nailed down because I think I need it more than you. Um, there was money taken, money borrowed that I owe, and I was able to call her today and be like, "Man, look, I know I owe this money. I'm supposed to start. I'm supposed to go look at a job. I know I need to make this right, and I know I need to make it right sooner rather than later because this it's not an adult that has a lot of money. Um, it was taken out of an account that I had no business being in, and right now, her daughter could really use the money. Um, I need to make that right. And I was able to talk to her, and we talked about other stuff. Like and the relationship I have with her today is it used to look like, hey, I'm broke, I need some money. Can you cash at me? Can you cash at me $20? Can you cash at me 100? And
Yeah.
there's times that she would, but there was times that she just wouldn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
Now, when I call her, she answers the phone, and we actually have like conversations where it's more than just me talking. We have this back and forth conversation, which is it's really foreign to me sometimes because I'm
Yeah.
used to being the one that talks. And then she'd listen and she'd be like, yeah, whatever. And then, you can hear like the change in her voice. Just, man, it's amazing what happens when I get out of my own way. Um, I've found this God that I can do business with, and you know, I pray and I do the action that I need to do. I take the whatever action I need to take, but I leave the results to God. And I
That's
try
right.
not to the best of my ability, I try not to manipulate the situation to suit me because I'm real good at manipulation too. But I've just learned if I just take that action, like today, just by picking up that phone and talking to her, taking that action. And she's like, so I posted on Facebook about this car that I eventually traded for this bike. That's the original reason why I called her, just to let her know what was going on there. So she didn't think that I was just out spending a whole bunch of money when I could
Yeah.
be making these amends. And, by doing that, she's like, I really didn't even think about it. I'm like, well, my conscience said, hey, you need to call and see and about this to try to make this right.
Yeah. No, I love that. I've actually that's you what you said is almost confirmation to me because I've been thinking a lot about that just with like because I think a lot of times we in addiction have reached out to people and gotten money on things like Cash App and things like that. And I never thought about this until just like a couple months ago. Um, that how many people, when they found out that we were in addiction, thought about those times that they sent us money. And then
Yeah.
they're like, wow, my money went toward. I even had somebody say, like, all those times I sent you money, like, did they go to you using? And like, I was, I didn't want to be dishonest, and I was like, unfortunately, yes. And so that's put into my mind, like, I am praying that God puts me in a position to be financially stable enough to one day just go through my Cash App and my PayPal and things like that and just start paying people back.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think that where that can be dangerous is that your recovery doesn't have to pay anybody back. You know what I mean? That's the thing you just got to be careful of, is because the thing I think that for you and the fact that, you know, somebody I know I've had situations where people said, hey, did that $20 I give you, was that fuel in a car that you drove drunk in? Yeah, it was, you know, and that actually is a story.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I think they automatically just assume that every $20 was being used for the drinking. It doesn't really, for their life, it doesn't really change anything. It just means that they saw me as this person. I think for you, I think the fact of the matter is your brand changed just because you changed. You know, it didn't. While I realize in our 12-step work, we should go back and make amends where it's possible. And I think that's noble of you to think that way. But that's not a step in there. You know, it says that you must pay every single person off there. What is important is that
definitely
the nature of what you had go wrong and the fact that you're a new person and a brand new man. That's what's most important, is that you're new and you're reliable and you're somebody people can trust. You know, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that'll change everything. That'll change everything for you, at least in my experience, because I was a complete scumbag. Maybe I am still. I don't know, but I just don't want you to beat yourself up over this money thing, because the thing is, like, we could always use more money. You know, what's important is who are you and what do you stand on as a man? And I think that you're standing on things. The amount of time, your whole life, you're dedicating to other people.
Yes.
No, definitely.
I agree.
I don't think I'm necessarily wanting to do it because I'm beating myself up over it, but it just and I think the biggest part was one day I was just scrolling through, because my year's coming up, and so I was like scrolling through Cash App and just like looking at the transactions, and like that popped in my head, like, some of these people I just want to pay back, because I know some of the people's, like, they went into their pocket, like into the bottom of their pocket, in order to give me $20, and then instead of using it for gas, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go buy crack instead. So like it's more for me, like a full come around, like, you gave me this and I told you I was going to pay you back, and I never did, and now I'm being a man of my word and paying you back.
The flip side of that too, though, is it's hard not to get resentments, because now I also get pinged a lot by people thinking I don't know what their $20 is. You know, they're asking me, you know, for $20, because everybody's groceries need $20 apparently, or people that I know what their addiction history is, when they're asking me for $30, I know what $30 means too. You know, so it's like, you know, it just, to me, it gets a little offensive. Like, I know what's up. You know, how about being honest with yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's my own problem, though.
So unfortunately, my phone is at, like, it was at 8 and now it's at 6, so it's dropping fast. Okay. So we're gonna jump over a couple things I wanted to ask you. We're gonna jump to the big doozy, the closer, the grand slam of all grand slams. The question that we end with,
when did you find out that Preacher was your father? I'm just kidding.
James, I am your father. What's one thing that you wish more people understood about addiction and recovery?
Man, you know, that's a good question. I've never really even thought about that. But so I got a brother I'm an intensive outpatient right now, and we have this family night where they can come in and kind of learn about it. And he's told me a couple different times, you know, that's something I'm just not interested in. You know, I think for me, you know, is being open-mindedness enough, having that open-mindedness enough to explore that it's a disease, not a moral deficiency, you know, because I think, at least in my eyes, there's a lot of people still blind to, this isn't something that that we necessarily choose to do. Sometimes it started off in school just having fun with our friends that turned into a life of hell. And, I think people being open minded and educating themselves about the disease of addiction instead of, man, if they could just, why can't they just stop? Why can't they just not use as much?
Or more importantly, the question I always would get is like, why did you start again?
Right.
You got beyond it. I can believe there was a disease, but now you didn't have to go back. And it's a tough question. That's a tough one to answer, actually.
Yeah.
I just say, I don't know.
Well, and the thing that I've had to learn is, sometimes there's not a reason. I did because that's what I conditioned my mind and my body to do. That's what I always made my solution. Things were good, use. Things were bad, use. Things were just things, use. That's what I centered my whole life around. And that's what I became comfortable with. So now that I'm not, I'm reconditioning my brain. Do what?
It became the solution to everything.
Yes, absolutely. I think, and you asked earlier what's different for me now is I think, one of the major things is I've now taken using an alcohol off the table as a solution. It's no longer a solution. And that's made it easier for me, most days.
Yeah. That's an honest answer, though.
That's awesome.
That's as honest answer as you can give.
Absolutely.
Most days.
Yeah.
And knowing that means you're not sitting there blind to what could happen. So
right. Exactly. Oh, I am not confused today that I am, I am not exempt from a relapse. Time and time again, having a year and a half clean, having, almost 7 years clean before this last relapse, it's shown me it doesn't matter how much time that I got. And it's not like, if I stopped off at an 8-ball, that if I were to pick up today, I'd go right back to the 8-ball. No, it's out in the parking lot doing push-ups, sit-ups, like running marathons. And, I'm going to pick up like I never stopped. And for me, that's an absolute death sentence.
Beefing up while we're doing what we need to.
Yeah. So I want to say one thing before we end here, because I'm sure it's getting close. Is I mentioned I've been around recovery for 25 years, and I've managed to pull just about 8 months. On the 21st, it'll be 8 months, and then on the 28th of March, I will turn 47. So I just want to say that I pulled 8 months together out of 25 years, and I think the biggest thing that I want to say is just don't give up. If you're struggling, just don't give up. If you relapse, man, just come back. Because that kept me sick for so long too. Is that that fear of rejection? And when I actually took the courage up, swallowed my pride, walked my ass back through that door, the love and acceptance that I had from the group, man, it's kept me alive.
Absolutely.
It's encouraging.
Well, that's awesome. I was always told, and early on, like when I wake up, forget what happened yesterday, forget what's going to happen tomorrow. You have one job today, and that's don't use. And so if you happen to have a relapse, don't knock yourself down for it. Don't beat yourself up. Start again tomorrow.
Well, just because you've relapsed doesn't mean you have to stay relapsed either.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, that is all we have. Chris, I'm at 3%. Do you have anything you want to say to everybody?
No, I appreciate you, James. It was really good to meet you. Stay on your journey. I mean, 8 months can turn in the rest of your life, but you are going to do it one day at a time.
Yes, absolutely.
Just keep doing it. We're in your corner. If you ever need anything, just reach out. You can reach
Definitely.
me through Preacher stuff, and we're one community,
Yeah,
whether
absolutely.
you like it or not.
Yes. So I just want to, thank you guys for affording me the opportunity. Affording me the opportunity of being of service.
Hey, I did have one
Absolutely.
last thing, James. It was just really moving to watch you meet your father for the first time here on this show, and I'm really glad that you guys. I'm glad you guys connected.
Stop it. But
Next time, Lori.
Yeah,
anyways,
it was
apart
beautiful.
from that, Chris and I will be back on tomorrow. We might have another guest, we might not, but we'll be back. And so until then, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, like, share, click that bell so you can be notified whenever we drop a new video and we have another live. But we love you all. Check out the merch in the description. Check out StreamYard. StreamYard's pretty cool. Chris uses them. I use them. They're pretty cool. And so we love you guys. So glad for you to join us, James. You are now part of the Preacher's Corner family. So welcome. But that is all that we have. Until tomorrow, always remember to love yourselves and love each other. Peace. And it's